So welcome to the February reading series presented by the Sundress Academy for the Arts. The Sundress Academy for the Arts, SAFTA, is a writer's residency and arts collective that hosts workshops, retreats, and residencies for writers in all genres, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, journalism, academic writing, playwriting, and more. Find out more at sundressacademyforthearts.com. This event is hosted courtesy of Sundress Publications. The land on which Sundress Publications operates is part of the traditional territory of the Salagi peoples, now Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and United Kitawa Band of Cherokee Indians, and Tesoya people, Yuki Muskogee Creek. Thank you to the Tennessee Arts Commission for the grant which has made paying our readers tonight possible. And now, please welcome our new Community Outreach Director, Sydney P., who's going to tell us about this month's community partner. Sydney?
Thank you so much, Janice. Our community partner for February is The Bottom, a nonprofit multi-space community center and home to a Black affirming bookshop, which recently celebrated their grand reopening in their new home in East Knoxville. The Bottom serves as a central hub to build community, celebrate culture, and engage in creativity through multiple program opportunities and fellowship with and for Black youth and adults. To learn more about The Bottom, please visit their website at www.thebottomknox.com. And to donate to them, check out thebottomknox.com/support-us.
All right. Thank you very much, Sydney. All right, we have a few people continuing to join us, but we're going to go ahead and jump right into our reading this evening. And we will be starting with Quintin Collins. Quintin is a writer, educator, and Solstice MFA Program Assistant Director. His work appears in many publications, and his first full-length collection of poems is The Dandelion Speaks of Survival, Cherry Castle Publishing, 2021. His second collection of poems, Claim Tickets for Stolen People, selected by Marcus Jackson as winner of the Journal's 2020 Charles B. Wheeler Prize, is forthcoming from the Ohio State University Press /Mad Creek Books in 2022. Quintin's awards include a Pushcart Prize and a 2019 Atlantis Award from the Poets Billow, my apologies, and his other accolades include Best of the Net nominations. The link where you can find his work is being dropped in the chat for you, and if you'd like to follow along with the reading, please let us know in the chat and we will send you the link. Quintin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Claim Tickets is now no longer forthcoming, so it's a good thing to get to say that for real. So I'm gonna read a few poems from that. And I'm gonna start with a few that are in reference to our former President Barack Obama. So the first one is called What I Would Ask About Barack's Post-Racial White House. What manner of gospel raised Barack Hussein Obama on Sunday mornings in the White House? Muscle memory of mop bucket and vacuum on the Sabbath. Who awakened his hands? Smokey Norfolk, Yolanda Adams, Mary Mary, in this hand-me-down house, spine and rib frames behind the sheetrock. How often did Barack sleep late on a Saturday morning? Or did the voices never stop their whispers in his ears? I saw what he wrought upon his souls. I imagine the dead beneath the south lawn could snare a root around his toes if he did not tread with caution. Am I asking too much of the mountain that I raised for him? No, these questions are supposed to be for Barack, not my illusion that on November 4th, 2008, we buried this country's history in Grant Park. We lowered it into the dirt, threw confetti on the grave, or so I thought. But these questions aren't for me. These questions are for a Black man in a tan suit in charge of white America. Final question, Barack said Trayvon Martin could have been his son. In that moment, did he know he shouldered a cross that could drag him down Golgotha? It happened, but I stared at the hilltop, and I haven't looked toward the ground since. So the next three poems are a series of contrapuntal sonnets that are all Barack Obama in conversation with the Black Captains America. There have been at least four, but these are the first three. And the conversations revolve around their identity as a Black individual who is a symbol for the United States. So the first one is Isaiah Bradley in conversation with Barack Obama. And I'm going to read this in both directions. So straight across and then down and then down and then next column. I too gave America residence in my body. I draped the flag across my skin. I held the shield for all of my dead brothers. And look at its weight on my bones. They count my grief as gray hairs, how the mantle stole my years, how I cut my tongue on the stars, how the stripes bound my fist, and what remains of this Black man branded a legend. In my dreams, I revisit the blood I paid to be a symbol, the sins I hid tucked into the uniform like a tie, like my ancestors tucked beneath this soil and my feet. I don't fight to covet this dirt or borders that claim it. A White House or monuments mean nothing to my name. I'm history you don't have to dredge off the ocean floor. I'm flesh vivisected to show this country a mausoleum of stolen people. I'm willing to die for its freedoms, kneel before its polyester, believe I can salvage these tatters. Make a state of my body, pin a star to my chest, call me captain. I too gave America residence across my skin. I held the shield and look at its weight on my bones. How the mantle stole my years, how the stripes bound my fist. Branded a legend in my dreams to be a symbol the sins I hid. Like my ancestors tucked beneath this dirt or borders that claim it. Mean nothing to my name off the ocean floor, I'm flesh. A mausoleum of stolen people, kneel before its polyester, make a state of my body. In my body, I drape the flag for all of my dead brothers. They count my grief as gray hairs, how I cut my tongue on the stars, and what remains of this Black man. I revisit the blood I paid, tucked into the uniform like a tie, this soil and my feet. I don't fight to covet a White House or monuments. I'm history you don't have to dredge, vivisected to show this country I'm willing to die for its freedoms. Believe I can salvage these tatters, pin a star to my chest, call me captain. And this one is Josiah X in conversation with Barack Obama. Have you ever been free in America? I have been free of America. Have you ever seen God? I have been God. The pedestal shakes when the masses clamor for salvation. When you're superhuman to other Blacks, it's hard to see your reflection when your only vantage point is down to the ground or the barrel. The God made of me, the God made for me, the God made America through the eye of a needle. What use is faith to a hand that rattles into a fist if I don't believe in violence enough to punch a keystone loose? Do I hold the shield? I am the shield, a symbol for white man's America. It's never been about freedom. I wouldn't wear the mask or the red, white, and blue if it had ever been about freedom. It's about how much I can bend the bars, how many bullets I can deflect, how far I fall when the pedestal topples, what devil they make of me. I disappear when I'm no longer their hero, when the costume starts to wear my body. Have you ever been free in America? Have you ever seen God when the masses clamor for salvation? It's hard to see your own reflection down to the ground or the barrel. For me, the God made of a needle. What use is faith to a hand in violence enough to punch the shield? I am the shield. It's never been about freedom or the red, white, and blue. It's about how much I can bend, how far I fall when the pedestal topples, when I'm no longer their hero. I have been free of America. I have been God. The pedestal shakes when you're superhuman to other Blacks, when your only vantage point is the God made of me. The God made America through the eye that rattles into a fist if I don't believe a keystone loose. Do I hold a symbol for white man's America? I wouldn't wear the mask if this had ever been about freedom. The bars, how many bullets I can deflect, what devil they make of me. I disappear when the costume starts to wear my body. And the final one is Sam Wilson in conversation with Barack Obama. Another old white man tires of his office. He threw America like a weapon, liberty slung on his back so he could pose. Hands on hips, chest puffed, eyes to the sky. Now the chainmail of his wars slumps his stature. He bestows the shield and a world on fire into my hands. This mantle of savior, as if I don't already have a name, as if my wings never took flight. How many teeth shattered as this metal launched into a mouth? How much blood did he rinse from the stars and stripes before he conscripted his burden to me? The Sentinel of Liberty, Captain. These monikers don't make me Avenger, more American than Black in America. I know this history when I take up the shield, that I'm expected to save everyone when the next skyscraper collapses. When I wear his costume, confine my body in red, white, and blue. I must emerge from his remnants, stand upon the rubble, head high, the latest shield for America. Another old white man tires like a weapon. Liberty slung on his back, chest puffed, eyes to the sky, slumps his stature. He bestows into my hands this mantle of savior, as if my wings never took flight. As this metal launched into a mouth from the stars and stripes to me, the Sentinel of Liberty, Avenger, more American than Black when I take up this shield. When the next skyscraper collapses, confine my body in red, white, and blue, stand upon the rubble, head high. Of his office, he threw America so he could pose, hands on hips. Now the chainmails of his wars, the shield and a world on fire, as if I didn't already have a name. How many teeth shattered? How much blood did he rinse before he conscripted his burden? Captain, these monikers don't make me an America. I know this history, that I am expected to save everyone when I wear his costume. I must emerge from his remnants, the latest shield for America. So this next poem is called Obama's Tan Suit, and it's an ode to the infamous tan suit. Button-down shirt our mothers cinched around necks years ago. We outgrow the yokes, tie clip behind the collar, pant hems retreated from Payless Oxfords, and our only suit. Only the baptism, then take it off. Put it back on the hanger so it doesn't wrinkle. Only a little big in the sleeves. Only a coffee stain that should come right out. Dry cleaned only once a year, if even. Only a rental. Only job candidate without one. Only Black job candidate. Only the first in-person interview. Only borrowed from our fathers. Only borrowed from our uncles. Only without matching slacks and jacket. Only Obama in a tan suit. Color after Black, charcoal and navy preempt our budgets. Tan, a hue reserved for the summer and disposable income. Imagine that the suit we wear for our cousin's wedding doesn't have to be good enough for our funerals. That our families could bury us in our favorite colors, tailored waist, suit that doesn't parachute our bodies, a suit we don't have to grow into over time, only to outgrow after only one use, only a tan suit. Why not purple or burgundy? Why not velvet and rhinestones? Why not something Bootsy or James or Little Richard or Prince would don, a hue that hides stains, where we can finally spill our cognac, play our music, dance our dances, let our skin sweat through the fabric. We too could pin America on our lapels. This poem is called All American Black Body, and this will be my second to last. Body broke, but body builds, mountain from matchsticks. Body burned, but body bends time round a wrist. Body bend words worth of hurt, but body writes signs of new cancer. Body crack, creak, shrink, split, rot, but rock. Bend low for soul music. Yes, my body be flesh. Yes, bone. Yes, my body be sinew. Yes, a lot of atoms. My body be Adam if you ask God. Body be slouched out of my bed. My body is America like paper and a house fire. And his final poem is called Black History Year. And I figured it was apropos for Black History Month. We celebrate late winter in January, overcast grass, languid skies, no snow, but cold zipper chin, down feather body. Snuggle in February, we praise the cookie jar at grandma's, porcelain toad fat, we reach for more Oreos. In March, when we honor minute rice, microwave beans bubbled slow in the stock pot, mama's cake batter whisk this turning, her hands we never know, hunger for April. We exalt light bulb filaments in bloom, electricity, the bill paid, we do not spark candlelight. In May, we revere our platitudes, air we offer to stifle silence, listen to stories, to lie, smile, all the same, this mouth. June, wheat laud, sprinkler water, tree seeds, box elder helicopters, cascade, sun-soaked, saturated kids. We dedicate July for tying shoes, walk circles to appreciate shadows' permanence. If we could stay, daddy can fix our tie, cut our hair. By August, we laugh, glorify letting go, throw roses on leftovers, faith on a dandelion, blow rippled wish. September, jubilate our new blue jeans. New school year fresh, we arrive, disposable, our income, it grows. October, we dream, fingers sunk in soil, snatch a Bible in sage, resurrection, a fire of leaves, the dead things, we give gratitude in November. Netflix, Twitter, binge, we scroll, the couch cushion indent, we haven't considered a clock since last December. We live complicated lives, we feast for waking up this morning. Why not every syllable celebrate? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Quentin. And just out of my own curiosity, do I spy a Captain America figurine over your shoulder there?
Yes, it's actually Sam Wilson.
Okay. I saw the shield, so of course it popped out to me as you were reading those contrapuntos. So thank you for sharing that. Wonderful, wonderful work. Okay, our next reader is Rebecca Pelkey. Rebecca holds a PhD from the University of Missouri, an MFA from Northern Michigan University, and is an assistant professor of film studies at Clarkston University. She's a member of the Brothertown Indian Nation of Wisconsin and a native of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. I'm in Detroit, so Lower Peninsula. Through a Red Place, her second poetry collection and winner of the 2021 Perugia Press Prize, was released in 2021. Her first book, Horizon of the Dog Woman, was published by St. Julian Press in 2020. The link to purchase her work is being dropped in the chat. And if you'd like to follow along with Rebecca's reading, you can also let us know in the chat. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Denise. And thank you, Quentin, for starting us off so amazingly. It's great to be here. I picked out 5 poems. I probably won't get through them all though, because I like to talk too much in between my work. So I'm going to start out with, so I'm reading from my book Through a Red Place. The artwork is by a wonderful Mohegan artist named Kristen Emelita. And this book is very much about a place, and that place is Wisconsin, and it's about how different people use land differently. It's a work of research and creativity. I did lots of archival research to make this book happen. I went to lots of historic sites. So all these poems are responding to things. They're either responding to archival documents or they're responding to places I went. So this first one is called Effigy, and it actually moves around a bit. It starts off at Serpent Mound in Ohio, which is one of the major effigy mounds in the upper Midwest. Is shaped like a serpent. And then it moves into Wisconsin. So Effigy. Let's begin with a snake sunk into the plateau or raised up from the creek through the meteor crater ages ago, they say, when snakes still had legs. If I were a snake, I'd point my coils too towards solstice, sunrise on the shortest day, a warning, a deep curve of grassy scale for summer, another for fall, a spiral of tail I'd follow inward until what I know shifts and slows off my skin. Fidelia wrote in her diary, yesterday, I saw in the river a snake with a fish in her mouth. The fish was handsome. The snake was ugly. We never were serpent people. I lay a palm on the snake's nose. The earth is warm underneath, and I am warm underneath. The pulse in my palm presses to a forked tongue as the wind picks up, hissing through the trees. Or let's begin with what we can only imagine as a fort, because all we can see in shared walls is war, not what they might have upheld, not that the bones of ancestors built into infrastructure might be less guards than counsel. Rock mounds pilfered because all we dream worth saving in the ground is gold. Here, X marks the solstice, the sun a winter treasure, or my great-great-grandmother's name, the long and short of her years, as two crossed lines on smudged parchment. I know so little of her, besides this. I know so little of these people, except that they tracked the sky, harvested plants we clear as weeds, worked copper and earth and stone to effigies, kept their dead at their doorsteps, and built a fort with 83 doors. Now let's end at the Wisconsin state capitol and its one grand door, where they dug the nearby mounds for fill, tamped down to foundations to build their own little hill. The bones of a people shouldering someone else's state, shattered turtle shells. These are not your counsel. And looking down over it all, a globe clutched in one palm, a girl done up in gold, a woman named Wisconsin. So with that, we're back to a snake, a river the Miami called Misconsin. We're back to the truth of a name she never knew she bore, Wisconsin. It lies in a red place. So for the second one, there's about a dozen poems in this book that are written in Mohegan, which is one of my ancestral languages. And so I wrote about a dozen poems in Mohegan. I'm going to try to read you a short one. The pronunciation is still really difficult for me. I'm pretty good on paper, but out loud it gets harder. So the Mohegan year is a lunar cycle, and there are 13 moons. And right now we're about at the end of the Mohegan year. So I'm going to read I did a series of these, half in English, half in Mohegan, for the sort of cycle of the year. And this is for the snow waiting moon, which is this month's moon. I'll read the Mohegan first, and then I'll read the English translation. So bear with me as I stutter through this. On Kamahamak Wion. On Kamahan Wion Ganuk Yakwi Ukadakwash Io Chakan Uyatahawank Nukanchtaman Yokisk Patahakwam Acha Koput Katamawa Pakachitong Awaks Koshawank Nukanchtaman Yokisk. Hey, that's pretty good. I did all right with that. So here's the English translation of that. Snow waiting moon. The moon wades through snow to its knees. Now, which emotion will we hide today? Thunder hunts the ice. The year ends with fog. We will hide fear today. So every moon in the Mohegan calendar has a little sort of a story behind it. Some are longer, some are shorter, and the snow waiting moon is called that partially because of the deep snow, but also because the way that the crescent moon is tipped, it can sort of look like the moon is holding on to snow as well. So that's part of that story. Might get through all of them after all. This is another longer one, and it is also, I found myself visiting these different various mound sites and writing a lot about mounds, which are sort of ancient North American cultures. And this one is about Bird Mound, which is in Devil's Lake State Park in Wisconsin. What else about this? I think that's all you need to know for this one. So this is called Bird Mound facing Devil's Lake. The lake was here long before the devil held sway in Wisconsin. And by that name, I mean where the river runs through the red place. Devil's Lake isn't its first name, but settlers heard Spirit Lake, Dawakachagra, and read evil in the earthbound sacred. A lake without inlet or outlet could only be bound to the underworld, and we know what that means. The story is, Devil's Lake was part of the river once, until glaciers came and went, leaving moraines in the gorges and forcing the river to bow around Baraboo's hills. There's something sad about that, like the lake is a child caged and curled in a ball, and the river a mother chewing through a wall of bedrock to return. Bird Mound could be a swallow-tailed kite about to take off from the shoreline. Their range before we came once included the borders of Wisconsin. And by that name, I mean the state that won't recognize my tribe, though we came here before the land was cut on dotted lines. Or maybe Bird Mound is really Thunderbird about to be dragged into the lake by Mishibiju, the Underwater Panther. It's a story I heard once about this place. There's an underwater panther mound across the lake, maybe squaring up. Mishibiju will drown you, they say. Or maybe Thunderbird has finally climbed out onto the shore and now he rests. Maybe one day he'll wake up and the cliffs of Wisconsin will shudder again with his voice. Right now, it's tourist season in Wisconsin, and by that name, I mean the state whose motto is forward. A slow wave of people come and go, giving little attention to Bird Mound blooming with prairie plants. The water draws them, and after all, Devil's Lake is just a name, and these vacationers have forgotten to fear spirits, at least in daylight. At some point, enough people cut across one wing so that it could be broken, a rutted trail bisecting a small hill prairie. Maybe it felt like an echo of great adventure for children raised to set themselves as kings of every hill, but not to see every hill as a king. Hummingbirds dart over Bird Mound between the purple spiderwort, maybe looking for something more to their liking, or maybe from the sky they see themselves writ large among the prairie plants. Who doesn't want to be closer to their gods? When a friend posts pictures on Facebook of camping and hiking around Devil's Lake, there are no photos of the mounds, which isn't surprising. If you picked up a guidebook, they'd be tucked in the far back. But in one lake shot from a rise above, I can see where Bird Mound should be, behind the trees next to the picnic shelter and the beach. People go, or maybe arrive, wading in. From this perspective, it might look like Bird Mound was about to fly, to settle its feathers of switchgrass and prairie dropseed before pushing off over the green water of Spirit Lake. So this next one I'm going to read is a found poem. If you're familiar with James Fenimore Cooper's book, Last of the Mohicans, that book has been very popular for a very long time, and it did a lot of damage to Indigenous peoples by sort of advancing this myth that we were vanishing, right? That we were destined to vanish from the earth. It's particularly for me because I have Mohican and Mohegan are two different tribes of people, but I have Mohican ancestors and I have Mohican ancestors and I have cousins in the current Mohican tribe. And it's I mean, it's kind of a, you know, a running joke, I guess, right? Because obviously there was no last of the Mohicans. They're alive and doing very, very well in Wisconsin, as a matter of fact, to this day. So what I did is I took the text of Last of the Mohicans and I looked for all of the places where a sentence started with I am, and I created a found poem out of this. And I think this will probably be my last one because I'm coming up at time here. So James Fenimore Cooper, if you read the book, he uses epigraphs at the beginning of his chapters by Shakespeare and other sort of famous classical writers. So I did the same, but I tweaked it a little bit. So this is my epigraph. Strives Cooper to be as great as we, greater he shall not be. So that's from Richard too, but I changed it from Bolingbroke to Cooper. Here I am glad. I am thankful that, though I am no scholar, I am not a prejudiced man. I am certain, I am genuine, I am willing. I am a blazed pine. I am outlying, I am journeying. I am on the hilltop and must go down into the valley. I am as ready to do one as the other, for I am on ground that I have often traveled. I am sorry. I am not sorry. I am very happy. I am sure. I am sure I am ready. I am rejoiced. I am suffered. I am resolved. I am a man. I am a man. I am a man. Am I then so very revolting? I am your prisoner. I am your prisoner. I am stripped. I am torn. I am not alone. I am not stone. I am not the last. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for your openness and your vulnerability in sharing that ancestral language with us. It would have been really easy for you to just read the English translation, but I thank you for going the extra mile and doing the original language for us as well.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay, our final reader for the evening is Heikki Huotari. Heikki attended a one-room school, spent summers on a forest fire lookout tower, is a disabled veteran, and was for a while a nationally ranked Masters Marathon runner. As a math professor, he published research papers in math journals such as the Proceedings of the American Mathematical Society. Since retiring from academia, he has published poems in numerous literary journals, including Pleiades, Spillway, the American Journal of Poetry, Willow Springs, and the Journal. His published collections include Fractal Idol, The Knowable Emotions, The Dog's Meow, Deja Vu Goes Both Ways, and When Correlation is Causation. You will find 2 links in the chat where you can purchase Heikki's work. And if you'd like to follow along with the reading, please let us know. Heikki, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Denise. I'm going to try to read a poem from each of the 5 collections with some exegeses preceding. I'm setting my timer for 10 minutes. I regard each of my poems as a lucid dream. The baseline is consistently disyllabic. The first poem is from The Knowable Emotions. I'm going to abbreviate my exegeses because there's too much. St. Elmo's fire is the plasma that sailors see in the rigging. So this poem is called St. Elmo's Fire. My heart beat prematurely, so my careful kiss went wide, and I lost points. It was my leap year birthday, so I came home early to an incomplete surprise. No candles on the cake, and my well-wishers poorly hidden. Then I was in charge of natural selection and conducting electricity. Then I made sure my flatfish had both eyes on one side, and I time traveled there. And when I touched my mother's hair, it felt like lacquer. Yours is soft. The second poem is from Fractal Idol. Two precipitating events, I guess, to anticipate this poem. I had a vivid dream that featured a cake. And otherwise, the internet told me how poisonous anacondas are. The poem is called Mining Irony. I'm tickled schizophrenic by the sun I sent to Earth and feel self-conscious till I notice mine is not the only footprint in the cake. I'm righteously indignant because I invented cake, so I can do with cake whatever I may please. And now the World Wide Web contends one anaconda bite kills 20 people, but it doesn't say if those unlucky people should be naked in a cake or in a pie. And now I hear the irony that I rely on has been discontinued. I hope I don't outlive my supply. Next poem is from The Dog's Meow. I'm either a human being dreaming I'm a dragonfly or a dragonfly dreaming I'm a human being. It's called Diagonal to Dragonfly. With hearts of matters delicate and fluttering, by double negatives enabled, clairvoyants may meet at midnight to consider their position on spontaneous combustion and trade bracelets. I may think outside some box. I may delete the highest and the lowest scores. Subject to Euclid's rule, I'm interchanging exponential growth and periodic motion, and my edifice and precious metals interacting. I may trot a token human out. The human is my new best friend. This next one from Deja Vu goes both ways. When we lived in Amherst, there was a 4-year-old boy who lived next door who one day was wondering what we did in our apartment. And then he conjectured that we walked around all night with the lights on. A lot more exegesis, but I want to read the poem. It's called Have an Axis. Anything you don't say can and will be used to benefit you. Are those doppelgangers replicas of you, or do they walk around at night? The phantom hand will have as many fingers as are contemplated. Any personage who can be made of ashes or of atoms can be animated, entertaining those not made of ashes or of atoms yet. Dissatisfied with only 2 directions of rotation, simply have an axis. Be suspended briefly. How could one not be enamored of an angular momentum when the angular momentum's always watching? As in every state, a state of grace, in theory and in practice, you're a juicy, fruitful isotope and have as many midlife crises as you please. The difference of opinion paradox says truth is always halfway in between. You move the finish and you move the finish, as it's easier to move the finish than the bleacher on which sits the queen. maybe you never wondered why a marathon is 26.2 miles long. It's because they wanted the queen to be able to watch the finish, and they didn't want to move the queen. Okay, this poem is from When Correlation is Causation. One caprice of mine is that gravity builds its strength during the night. And then when I'm walking at 4:30 in the morning, I activate a sequence of security lights. I have a standard walk, so I know which light is about to come on. Next step, over that garage, the light will come on. It's called When Gravitons Amass. My faux pas, not of fashion, but of attitude, my without form and void is handed from one motion-activated night light to another. Now my spine is in alignment. Now my lips are sealed. How ellipsoidal, but for their extremities, the chickens. How electrical their circuits. Natural processes, I'll be the gentle breeze you asked for and the skipping heartbeat. As a Boy Scout, my reward is doubled when I help across the street the soul that has no wish to go. As lie detectors vie for my approval, linear regression is a work in progress. Then potential energy is edging on kinetic. Weather wears redundancy away and gravitons amass. Okay, two new poems, one from a week ago and one from this morning. Vitruvian Man is the name of a sketch by Leonardo da Vinci that shows how a man can be inscribed in both a circle and a square. To me, it looks like a Mickey Mouse watch. The title of the poem is Preemptive Empathy v. Proof by Contradiction. Fuel plus oxygen plus passion passes understanding, not around the room, but counterclockwise. And it's Russian roulette with collapsing chairs. Vitruvian Man's hands for hours and minutes, feet for shopping days to Christmas and to doomsday. Should a scientist desire to sabotage his own career, the scientist's behavior is constrained, but not by your continual construal. Horns of one dilemma severed, fishing for a compliment, a hook flies by an ear. Did I miss much, Rip Van Winkle, when I traveled past the speed of sound? The occupiers had their wits about them. I was having thoughts of casts of thousands, so I doubled down. These vases are of different sizes. As the shibboleth is sublimating, so close clarinets are closer than close oboes. So to see how lucid you are, I need only ask you who the President of the United States is. Non-existence makes the artificial heart grow fond. Into what focus are these voices thrown? I have no doubt there are fine people on the bright side too. It's 10 minutes, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Hecky. Thoroughly appreciate you reading from all those collections and managing to squeeze in some new work for us too. So we get the full breadth of your experience. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we are at the Q&A portion of tonight's reading. If you have any questions to ask our lovely readers, this is your time to shine. I'm going to ask you to put that information into the chat. And until Mara tells me we have something, I'm going to start us off because I was taking notes as you all were reading because I have questions for everyone. And I'm actually going to start with you, Hecky. I would like to know, first and foremost, how does a math academician make his way into poetry?
one takes math classes to learn how to write. Then you go to the English class that's part of the liberal arts education, and you don't have a clue. It's all opinion. No one ever gets to the point. So you learn it in your math classes.
That is intriguing because I mean, as a writer myself, I was one of those people who isn't good at math and doesn't like math and all those sorts of things. And so, you know, we have this whole left brain, right brain conversation, how the creative people aren't necessarily good at some things. So it's wonderful to see someone be capable in both areas. I'm happy to see that.
The main thing in math is proving things. And in a proof, one statement has to follow from the other. You can't tell lies. Of course, in poetry, I do get to tell lies.
In poetry, you get to tell stories, and I love the way that you do that. Okay, Mara, feel free to jump in and stop me at any moment when you see a question. Otherwise, I'm going to keep rolling down my list here.
I think we do have one question that we just got in the chat.
Absolutely.
Would you like me to read it or?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, of course. So Ashley says, good evening. Thank you for this wonderful reading tonight. How do you all honor those who came before you without it feeling exploitive? This is particularly for Quintin and Rebecca, but Heike can also answer. And the question is in the chat too.
Yes, I can start. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? Because we consume, I mean, I believe you should be consuming more than you're actually putting out. It's one of the best ways to write better is to read, you know, and read widely. And, you know, with that, you come to these places where you have like a lot of the controversies around misuse of the concept of the after poem, some very clear instances of plagiarism. And then, you know, just how these things work into like our cultural understandings and histories that get built into our work. So both of my books really do a lot of work with communicating with Black culture, not just from personal experience, but from experience of peers, experience of parents, grandparents, ancestors, to the point that, like, you know, for me, it's a conversation. There's a lot of ways that Blackness manifests. We're not, you know, a monolithic group of people, and it's about that conversation. So I think one of the biggest things I try to do when having any of that conversation happen, and when it involves a conversation between the work of my literary ancestors and contemporaries, it's really just, you know, always thinking about that place of, okay, so I have to write this poem. They're not writing the poem. They may be in conversation with the poem, or they may be inspired me to sit down and write the poem, but like the poem should be responding to them if it's an inspiration. And I think that's one of the biggest things I always think is like, you know, how can I say this in a way that only I can say this? Because, you know, the whole thing about everything's been written already. And you know, my response to that when I always think about it, like, you know, like, okay, how do you write something new has always been like, well, what's the way that I would write this poem? Because there's only one me. And the one me is having a lot of conversations with a lot of people through their work and through my experience in cultural exchange. So what's the way that only I can do that? And that's the way that I just kind of, you know, try to make sure that while I'm doing that, while I'm bringing these things in, and while I'm in conversation with this work and learning so much from it, that I, you know, make sure I honor it as well. And of course, you know, one of the simplest things like anybody can do is, you know, when you put a book out, or if you get something published and there's space for it, you know, just put in the notes where you need to put in your notes where things were inspired. It's a very simple thing to do, and it means quite a bit.
Thank you, Quintin. Rebecca, would you like to respond as well?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, I always try to mention that I can only tell my story, right? I don't speak for any Indigenous community or Native Americans in general, or especially because I have, you know, I have passing privilege. I walk the world as a white person most of the time, which means my experience has been much different from a lot of other Indigenous people. And so I think as far as how do you, for me, it's all about being part of a community and always keeping in mind that I am part of a community and asking myself over and over and over, how is this going to affect my community? What can this work do to help other people in my community? And so like for Through a Red Place, here's my big fluffy white cat who has something he wants to say as well. Whenever I start talking. Like for Through a Red Place, I worked with another tribal member on editing the Mohegan poems. Like his name is Robert Tryon, and he helped me make sure that I had all my grammar and things right. And you know, I talked to my tribe about specific things along the way, and for me, I mean, it can sound strange to outsiders, but I've had experiences where, you know, my ancestors told me that I was fine, that I was doing okay, doing what I was supposed to be doing, and so those things, I count on those things to help me know that I'm going in the right direction and that I'm not exploiting something. But I think for me, it's always stopping and just pausing and taking a moment and asking sort of for help from my community when I need that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. I think that's an excellent point. I think some of us, especially as writers, we tend to think of ourselves as on this island alone in this solitary profession, right? Writing is a thing that you have to do by yourself. No one can do it for you, but people can absolutely support you, and having a community to support you is key. So yeah. Thank you for bringing that forward. I appreciate that. Okay, so I don't see any more questions coming in the chat yet, but I have another one for each of you. Quentin, you mentioned how important it is to consume more than you put out. So my question for each of you now is, what are you reading right now?
I mean, I can start if no one else wants to. I have been in love with Jenny L. Davis's book of poetry, Trickster Academy. It's about her experiences of being a person of Indigenous heritage in an institution of higher education. And it's wonderful, and it's funny, and it's heartfelt. And I don't say that I love many whole books of poetry, but everything in that book is beautiful. So, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the novel that I'm reading because I'm terrible with that sort of thing. So I'll try to look it up on the internet and put it in the chat if I remember that way.
Okay, perfectly okay. I read multiple books at once too, so I completely get that. Quentin, tell us, what are you reading now?
So I'm currently, I have different times when I can read. Now that I'm getting back out into the world, I have a train book. So that's the book that I'm reading when I'm on the train. So that one is Stunt Boy in the Meantime by Jason Reynolds and Raul III. I had the opportunity to meet Raul for a work thing. Was this 2020 now? Jesus, so long ago. And I just remember I was like, your art style is, phenomenal. And so when I saw this book was coming out, I was like, all right, I went to my local bookstore and pre-ordered it immediately. And it's amazing. Just the layers of peeling back the understanding of what the book is actually about has been awesome. And it's great. It's accessible for adults and for young people in terms of what it talks about, and putting some very difficult concepts into terms that are through the eyes of a very young child, and the innocence that comes with that. So it's great in terms of the visuals. And then I recently started the first compendium of Spawn comics. I saw the movie when I was a kid, saw the TV show in the past couple of years because it was on HBO Max, and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty good. I don't need Todd McFarlane at the start of every episode talking to me, but okay, the show was pretty interesting for it being out when it came out. So now that I started reading the comics, because I also consume some of the other merchandise, I was like, wow, this is disappointing. It's the artwork is amazing, but the writing itself, I was just like, yeah, I it was definitely a time. So, but it's been great. You know, I think I'm learning. Like, I've only recently in my life come to comics and graphic narratives in general, and I'm very much learning how to appreciate what the art is doing in addition to the text. I think that's actually one of the problems I have with Spawn is that there's like so much text and like the artwork can do so much more. But I learned a lot of that from Josh Neufeld, someone who I work with, and like all his classes on like, you know, what are comics? Like, what is a gutter? You know, like how does the size of the panel affect your sense of time and all that? It's mind blowing because like now I can pick up stuff that I would have just never like understood. Like, are people like comics? I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like, this is amazing. It's like a poem with pictures. Like, it's great. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. It's comics. I will maybe get back into some poems or some other stuff after this, but that Spawn compendium is it's heavy. So it'll be a minute.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I love across the spectrum, and it's not just you're only reading poetry or you're only reading one particular thing. We get inspiration from all kinds of places. So I think that's awesome. I also see, Rebecca, that you dropped that name in the chat, Sabrina and Karina. I actually read that collection. So that's actually a really good choice. Kind of dark though. Some of those stories are a little dark, but good collection.
Yeah, I'm not that far into it yet, but I'm really enjoying it already. So yeah, I like a little darkness. And Quentin, for me, it was The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. Those are the comics that were my sort of gateway into comic books.
Okay. Hey, Key, tell us, what are you reading now?
I didn't get to answer the question about exploitation, and I did want to. Because I'm privileged, I do not presume to preach or even teach, but I do try my best to stick to the lane of my own experience. My current go-to is John Ashbery, but I remember recently being strongly influenced by Julia Story. Her poems are so warm and so surprisingly generous to random things of this world.
Thank you. And thank you for going back to answer that question as well. I appreciate that. Okay, I don't see anything else coming through in the chat. I don't see Mara trying to get my attention. So I think we are ready to wrap up. I'd like to remind you all, please not to forget to donate to our February community partner at the bottom. You can donate to the bottom at the link that's being dropped into the chat. Also, on March the 9th from 6 to 7:30 p.m., please be sure to join us for our March workshop, Reimagining the Poetic Form, led by Ernesto L. Abecia. There's going to be an RSVP link for that dropped in the chat for you as well. We also hope to see you at next month's CrossFit, hosted by Staff, Reading Series Coordinator. Hey, that's me, Denise Irvin. On Sunday, March 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Facebook page will be forthcoming. And finally, on March the 30th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, please join us for our March Reading Series installment featuring Jason B. Crawford, Marlanda DeKine, and Gustavo Berhana Lopez. The Facebook page for that is also forthcoming. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention this evening. Thank you to all of our readers, Quentin, Rebecca, and Heike, for the amazing work. If you've not been paying attention to the chat, people are going crazy because you all are amazing. So thank you for sharing with us this evening, and you all have a great and wonderful night.